Flamingos move from land to water, but they don't submerge either. They profit from whatever they steal from the rivers, lakes, or seas where they reside, but they only get their heads and the tips of their feet wet. Actually, they don't like water much. They prefer to keep their distance on their endless legs. They walk as if holding up their skirts so that none of their feathers get wet while on the watch for a thick algae and crustacean soup. They're not ready to get wet for a meal, but they must at least make the food come to meet them. It may seem a forward movement or a dance, but the flamingo's tapping is their peculiar way to stir the pond bottom and to reach and filter their nourishment. From bottom to bill, in a never-ending dance. Surprisingly, this elegant and advantageous feeding system is copied very profitably by fishermen that share their habitat with pink flamingos. In southern Spain, traditional shell fishermen walk up and down the beaches, repeating the flamingo's dance. With their feet, they force the mollusks buried in the sand to leave their hiding places and end up in the filtering net. It's exhausting work that demands great physical effort. But at least when the day is done, the good dancers know that their art will feed them another day. If certain birds developed long legs to keep their feathers from getting wet, other birds, on the other hand, learn diving techniques to profit from the aquatic element as if it were a huge pantry. A bit of body oil as a raincoat, some protective membranes on the eyes, the capacity to hold their breath, and special feet, and the objective is met. Birds can swim underwater. Perhaps what most fascinated us about this evolution was the wonderful tool that ducks around the world use when they swim: paddles. Duck feet have turned into paddles, and they look like the oars humans make to propel our small boats. Maybe it was obvious that to progress through water you have to propel yourself in the opposite direction. Or it may be just a coincidence, the evolutionary merging of ideas. In nature, there are many cases in which different species have reached the same solution when facing the same problem. In fact, the path followed by aquatic birds till they reach the paddle has been followed by most terrestrial species that return to water. It was a turning back to life's origins. This journey of changes starts when you lose your fear of swimming. The best thing is to begin with shallow places. But if the journey goes into the deep spots, the most daring individuals, if they survive, will have crossed the line that turned them quickly or slowly into a new species. Sometimes spontaneous morphological variations appear that make it possible to discover alternate worlds. When this happens, it's possible to explore and reach new resources, new virgin spaces for the new order. The search for food and ecological systems providing other expanding possibilities took these zoological classes to water, or to the sea. This colonization was carried out by arthropods, reptiles, and mammals, and all of them had to reshape their bodies to make them more hydrodynamic. Sea turtles have more streamlined shells than their ancestors, and their legs have turned into true flippers. Those features that meant more hydrodynamic movement were selected and incorporated into the genetic plan. The reinvasion of the planet's blue areas was so perfect that many species forgot their past, while some others only step on land to perform certain duties. The movements of sea lions on land show that their links with the dry places where they are born are decreasing more and more. The modified structure of their extremities only works in the sea. On land, their flippers are not very comfortable, but in water, they are like wings, and they can fly in 3 dimensions. Conquering the ocean demanded other adjustments besides a hydrodynamic profile and the propulsion conferred by flippers. Hot-blooded beings needed to stop the heat loss they suffered whenever they entered the liquid element. A thick layer of fat insulates them from their environment. Pinnipeds and cetaceans are the most overweight beings in the seas, although fat floats in water. Watching these animals that are so well equipped for aquatic living, that enjoy and play with the waves, the spectator may want to get into the water too. Why not? Let's copy their methods and get some flippers. Would man-made flippers propel us? The answer to these old questions is yes and no. Yes, flippers will propel us in some surprising ways. And yes, we can insulate our bodies with thick diving suits. But we are light years away from their turns and somersaults, from their amazing ability to navigate independently from one sea to another. One thing is man's invention, and another, even more perfect thing, is natural evolution. Nonetheless, man, driven by our hunger for knowledge, is looking into a world that was totally unknown until recently. Our gear and techniques are born from our observation of underwater life and from our dream to become dolphins. But our visits to the underwater world are reduced to brief periods. The lack of air will soon force us to set our feet back on dry ground. If we can stay underwater for even brief periods, it's because we have copied another thing from our diving masters. This insect can be considered the inventor of scuba tanks. Over 5 centimeters long, the water tiger beetle catches its prey underwater. Its technique is not a quick one. It's a stalker. While it's waiting, it needs to breathe, but it doesn't want to emerge often. Its watch demands concentration and calm, so its prey do not discover its presence. To reduce the number of interruptions, it has designed an air chamber that helps prolonging its wait. When it has to emerge to breathe, it refills its deposit hidden along its elytrons between its wings. Sometimes some bubbles escape from its tank, but its specific oxygen tank performs perfectly the job it was designed for: to store and ration out the precious air to extend the period the animal may stay underwater. The water beetle has solved the same breathing problem we share.